So I am very excited to introduce our speakers today. So we have 3 panelists for our Science for Success panel. In 2019, several state soybean checkoff programs joined together with support from the United Soybean Board to create Science for Success. This partnership brings together 17 extension specialists from land grant institutions across the country, representing more than 80% of U.S. soybean acres. These specialists contribute their own state-specific knowledge and research results to the program. As demands of the soybean industry change, this team collaboratively uses proven research combined with historic results to adapt best management practices to future challenges. So learn more about their funded projects, as well as how to get your hands on up-to-date information to optimize your soybean yield and protect quality. Okay, so for now, I will start off by introducing our panelists. We have Drs. Giovanni Presafontes, Laura Lindsay, and Rachel Van with us. And so I got quick bios, I'm going to read about them. So Giovanni grew up in Mato Grosso, Brazil, where he received his Bachelor's of Science in Agronomy. He also has his degrees in Agronomy and Crop Sciences from Kansas State and here at U of I, primarily working with cover crops and nitrogen fertilizer management in different cropping systems. His approach is to conduct applied research to identify management practices that increase grain yield and nutrient use efficiency while reducing environmental impacts. And so Giovanni is our new field crops agronomist here for extension at U of I. Very excited to have him on board. We also have Dr. Laura Lindsay. She is the soybean and small grain extension state specialist at the Ohio State University. The goal of her research and extension program is to maximize crop yield while maintaining economic and environmental sustainability. She received her doctorate in crop and soil sciences from Michigan State University and both a bachelor's and master's degree in soil science from Ohio State. And then we also have Dr. Rachel Van, who you heard from earlier this morning. She provides leadership for the North Carolina State Soybean Extension Program, focused on providing soybean stakeholders across North Carolina with agronomic information that will aid in maximizing soybean yields. Additionally, Rachel serves as a North Carolina Plant Sciences Initiative platform, as she shared with us this morning. And she is the lead PI for the National USB supported Science for Success project, which we're going to hear all about. So Rachel actually grew up in Geneseo, Illinois, and she received her undergraduate degree here from U of I as well. So let's take a second to welcome our panel. So they have a kind of presentation for us to kind of kick us off, get us into the mindset of Science for Success, and then we're going to have plenty of time to just ask some questions. So hopefully this will be a very interactive panel. As they're going through their presentation, start thinking of your questions that you have for them about Science for Success, but also just about the soybean research that they do, any kind of questions that you have for them. So I will welcome up whoever is going to kick off the presentation. We have a walking mic if you use that.
Hey, well, good morning, everyone, again, and so delighted to see so many people at the Science for Success panel. I was worried to overview and enjoy different blitz sessions, so this is fantastic. Already kind of gave a flavor about what Science for Success is, but again, want to emphasize this is an outreach project supported by the United Soybean Board that brings together extension specialists from all of these states to collaboratively deliver best management practices. And there's a lot of benefits of this group that go just beyond the best management practices that we deliver. Having people like Dr. Emerson Naxinger in this group has provided a tremendous amount of mentoring value to some of the younger specialists. Now we have a network of extension specialists across the United States to help make us more effective at serving other farmers in our local area. So, we just wanted to give some background on Science for Success, a little more detail than we did in that presentation. Our goal is to introduce Science for Success, give an example of a collaborative research trial, which Dr. Laura Lindsay will do on biological seed treatment, and then highlight some extension publications that were just recently released or upcoming. So, the whole goal of Science for Success is to coordinate and synergize the research that's going on at the local level to have national extension impact. All of us in our individual states are doing research trials on a whole variety of topics to increase yield, protect quality, protect the environment, a whole range of topics. And we've not always coordinated effectively with one another to try to amplify what we are doing and minimize overlap. And that's one of the goals of this United Soybean Board supported project. So I listed these project goals just a moment ago, but we really have 3 core areas we're focused on. One is to take the knowledge that we already have from the many years of state-funded research that we've conducted, get together, pool that knowledge, and amplify it up into national extension impact. We also collaborate on national research trials. You'll hear an example of those in a few moments, and work together to disseminate best management practices on the national level. So here is an example of how we leverage existing knowledge from previously conducted research in our states. And that might have been funded by our state boards, or that might have been funded by the NCSRP, or that might have been funded by federal grants, but we're leveraging the knowledge that we have from work that's already been conducted in our state. And last year we put out this extension publication called the Soybean Growth Cycle: Important Risks, Management, and Misconceptions. And this is a document that's jam-packed with production information and previous research that's been conducted on different topics as you move across the soybean growth cycle. And I'll just give you a recent example. I was doing an extension meeting on Monday in North Carolina, and a grower asked me about sugar applications in soybeans and their impact on yield. And we hadn't conducted any research on that topic in North Carolina recently. However, I knew in this document, it pulled research that's been conducted in other parts of the US, so I could refer that farmer to this document. And that's kind of the power of knowing what's going on across the different states and being knowledgeable about the resources we can highlight to our growers. So this is one example of leveraging our historical knowledge. The other example I highlighted in my previous presentation, which was a collaborative trial that we did looking at the value of foliar fertilizers applied at beginning cod and soybeans across the US. And you heard me talk about the results of this. This is available on that QR code, and all our information is available on the Soybean Research and Information Network website. That's just one example. Annually, we have 2 to 3 protocols that we're executing on the national level on a variety of topics. And if there's any specific topic that you're really interested in, please provide that feedback to the soybean extension specialist in your state. So I'm assuming most of you are from Illinois, and that would be Giovanni. But if you're from other states, please provide feedback on the protocols you'd like to see, because these are evolving topics annually. It was kind of fun to see the desiccant and harvest timing question come up in the previous presentation, because that's a topic that we plan to address as an upcoming national protocol. But we've looked at NNS, sulfur, nitrogen and sulfur fertilization, foliar fertilizers, soil health, and the relationship between some of these soil health metrics. We heard in Andrew's presentation, and soybean yield. We've looked at N fixation under different fertility regimes in the biological seed treatment trial that Laura will highlight. I will again emphasize this is an outreach project, so we're really trying to use the diversity of strategies to get this information out to our growers. One of the big strengths that this team has is we are the extension specialists in our individual states that are out on the road sharing information with growers all year long. So that's one of the main mechanisms by which we get this information out. But we also do things like host national webinars. We had a webinar centered around this misconceptions across soybean growth stages last year that had hundreds of growers attend in real time, and almost 700 growers watch after we did the webinar. So we have webinars. This year, we're going to have a webinar series in March that covers some of our collaborative research trial topics and also other topics related to early season management decisions. We've developed YouTube videos. So each of those extension publications has a shorter video that accompanies it that highlights some of the material. And again, we work closely with the Soybean Research and Information Network, or what we call SHRIN. And they help us promote this material, not only on the website, but also by facilitating other opportunities to get this material to farmers. We also started a Twitter account in April of 2022. And we have, this is a little outdated. We have, I don't know, 550 followers. So we're pretty excited about this. This is new. We're just getting this off the ground. And we use this to promote the materials we developed. But something else we do on our Twitter is we give production updates about things that are going on around the country, little YouTube videos. So Laura might be out in the field and see some pest issue behind cover crops. And I might be in the field and show a video of yellow flash and soybeans, and Giovanni might show the frog eye leaf spot. We were just highlighting things that are going on around the country, and growers have enjoyed following along on this Twitter account. So follow us at Soybean Science 1. This is just another way we're trying to connect farmers to the information we develop. So wanted to highlight some of the things we're doing with our 3 core goals of the project, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Laura Lindsay to talk about an example of a collaborative research trial in more detail.
Perfect. Thanks, Rachel. This is just one example of, I guess, many trial protocols we've worked on. This is probably the most recent trial. We're still gathering data about the 2022 growing season, but the biological seed treatment trial is something of interest because there's a huge number of these products available on the market. I had my graduate student go to Commodity Classic last year and just look at what was offered on the trade show. And we know not every company is there, but just at that trade show alone, there were 22 different companies offering 40 different biological products for soybeans alone, not looking at one or anything else. And there's multiple active ingredients, bradyrhizobias, trichoderma, bacillus. So just all of these active ingredients and all of these products available that farmers have to sift through. And this is a screenshot of just what you can find on the labels. And so there's bacteria, there's fungi, some are for disease, some are for nitrogen fixation, some make phosphorus more available. So all of these proposed targeted benefits to biological seed treatments. This is an email I received from a seed company agronomist in Ohio. And so he was polling his team to see what they wanted to learn about the most. They're doing an educational series for their seed dealers. And the one that rose to the surface for them as a company was biologicals. And he was writing to me because he wanted to have some unbiased information about biological seed treatments for soybean. And I think this is great. Positions our team really well. As soybean extension agronomists working at universities, we need to be unbiased and have this information available. So there really is a need for this type of research. So last year, 2022 was our first year of doing this seed treatment trial. I need to delete Emerson and add Giovanni. But Emerson was really, really gracious to establish this trial in Illinois, even though he was retired, because he wanted to have it as a placeholder for Giovanni. So thanks, Emerson, for doing that. Thanks for Giovanni for picking up on that. But these are the states involved last year. This year, we're picking up Pennsylvania because there's a new agronomist there, Florida, and potentially Nebraska has a new agronomist as well. So we are growing and we'll have more sites available in the 2023 growing season. And these are just the states involved. Each state has multiple trial locations. So in 2022, even though I think there's like 17 or 18 states on there, specific trial locations was close to 50. So this is probably the biggest data set of a common protocol on biological seed treatments that I'm aware of. We also sought out farmer input. So we sent a survey to QSSBs to see which products they were most interested in. So these are some of the results. And the 4 that the farmers were interested in are highlighted here. So we wanted to have a wide range of microorganisms or active ingredients available, but then also had a placeholder for farmers to put in what they were interested in as well. So this is our treatment list. So we had 9 different biological seed treatments, and all of these products are donated by companies. So we were able to cut some costs there. And then we had a non-treated control that just had a fungicide and insecticide applied to the seed. So I'm not going to go through these in detail,
but these are some of the active ingredients. Again, wide range of proposed benefits to soybean. But when we were doing a lit review, what we noticed that a lot of these products were tested in a laboratory or growth chamber or greenhouse. And so with those types of studies, a lot of time researchers will sterilize the soil and then add the seed treatment and see what happens. But we know when we do this in a field setting, a real soybean field, your results can be a lot different because you're not putting these biologicals in a nice sterilized environment. So this field research really is needed. So we have three primary questions, how do these products work? I guess to increase yield, maybe not how is a good way of saying it. Do these products increase soybean yield? And where are they best positioned? So we have a nice range of north, south, east, west. We're going to have some fields that are dry. We're going to have some that flood. We're going to have some that have high P, some with low P. So we're going to have all of these range of environments that we can really sift through and see where these products work, and also the return on the investment for farmers. So we just wrapped up the 2022 growing season. It's a huge amount of data. So 50 locations, we have plant samples we have to analyze, soybean cyst nematode analysis. We have all the management practices, all the baseline soil. So huge amount of data that we're still trying to sift through. We do have some preliminary analysis. I think Giovanni has some of that he can share for Illinois specifically. But I guess the bottom line is keep following Science for Success as we sift through all of this data and then repeat the trial again in 2023 this year. This is my student Fabiano, and that's another really, I think, big benefit to this team is that we need graduate students to help us coordinate because I can't coordinate 19 agronomists, but my quirky graduate student can. So Fabiano, he's really the day-to-day person. So if Giovanni has a question, he can call Fabiano, and Fabiano can answer the question. But it's a really good opportunity for him because now he knows all of the soybean agronomists in the United States. And eventually, I think he wants to be an extension agronomist. And my hope is if he knows everyone, as jobs open up, he'll be very well positioned to get a job as an extension agronomist somewhere in the US. So I think I'll pass it over to Giovanni.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everybody. So quickly, I just want to walk you through some of the recent publications that we have coming out this month. So, as one of the objectives of the group is outreach. So we have, with this group enables us to meet together and put our thoughts together. And I think every year we have a goal to write at least 3 publications, extension publications to help farmers, crop consultants, and everybody that works in agronomy, right? So this is the 3. I'm going to show you the 3 new ones that are coming out. One is choosing the right variety, soybean variety, variety selection is one of the most important things when we think about soybean production. So we came out with this publication to help farmers and producers and everybody to kind of walk through and give some advices and offer some recommendations for variety selection. The other publication coming out is talking about replanting. We have one early that came out last year about planting dates. So this is kind of following up. Here we summarize some scenarios and kind of walk readers through, some scenarios to help them decide if replanting is necessary or not. There's a lot of considerations to take into account when you talk about replanting. The last one, we talked about planter technologies. So this is kind of, we focus on these 5 technologies here: seed delivery, planter downforce, in-furrow application, row cleaners, and closing wheels. So this publication is kind of following, like we talked about a little bit what each of those technologies means. What are some of the caveats of the technology? Is there some research that has been done with this technology in terms of soybean production? So now we have a partnership with Soybean Research and Information Network, where they are housing our publications for Science for Success. So this is a QR code. If you have your phone or your tablet, you can just scan it, we'll direct you to the website and you can bookmark it. But if you go to the Soybean Research Information Network, under resources, you go to library and then you kind of click show categories, and then you're gonna scroll down and you're gonna see Science for Success. That's where you can download all of our publications for now, right? So, and I think that's it. Again, we want to thank you, the USB and all the state soybean boards for the support. This is a lot of effort and to put this team together, but it's a joy. I'm kind of fresh in the group, so tremendous joy to be part of this group. I think there's a lot of opportunities for growth. But yeah, that's it. I think now I'll pass to Jennifer.
Yeah, you guys can keep the mic if all three of you want to come up and take a seat. We can open it up. So we've got about 15 minutes left in the session, and I want to make sure that if you all have questions, we get to those first. So we'll just kick it off. Does anyone have any questions for these three? You got three very experienced agronomists in front of you. Yeah.
Or if your research will be biological, are you looking at soil testing to see if a biological either had a positive return or a negative return, that or those I'll call the biological already present in the soil?
Could you repeat the question too?
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to rephrase the question. Tell me if I'm wrong. I guess the question was about our soil testing with the biological seed treatments. If we were able to see if those microorganisms are already in the soil. The answer is people can do that. We did not do that. I think it would be extremely costly to go that route. It's a very good question. We did take baseline soil samples at all of the locations and analyze them at the same lab. But that's for the baseline soil properties, so like cation exchange capacity, texture, pK, pH. So we have all that basic soil information, but we did not do any testing of the soil for any specific microorganisms. But it's a really important question because for those biologicals to work, they have to infect the seed or infect the roots. And we don't know what other microorganisms are there as competitors. So I think it's a very good question, but not something we're looking at specifically with this project.
How many years will you be doing these different trials? Do you have goals for the biological products, for example?
Yeah, so how many years? So usually we like to have at least 2 years of research because things can vary year to year, weather varies. Since we have so many states and so many locations across the US, we'll probably do the biologicals for 2 years, the boiler fertilizers for 2 years. And also fits nice with graduate programs because eventually they want to get out too, but usually 2 years is what we do for protocols.
Right.
We've got a question from the online group.
Can you discuss how broadcast biologicals affect soil health and or nutrient availability?
The microphone.
And if you could repeat the question, please.
Can you discuss how soil health product or biologicals broadcast applied affects soil health and nutrient availability? I would say our group of agronomists, that would fall outside of our expertise, but I will say that our team is conducting research that is relevant to the questions that our growers are asking. So while we might not be testing for infection of the biologicals within specific sites, we are following the specific recommendations that the companies are providing to growers for these products and testing them in a very similar mechanism to what a grower would test. And we're capturing many different soil types in many different environments, climatic conditions. And there are several sites where we saw a response this year. And that's the beauty of this data set. Okay, we can drive down into what happened at those environments and what was it about those soil types and what was it about those climatic conditions. So we can start building out a database where we understand where these products are making a difference and where they're not.
What fungicide and insecticide were used on the control treatment for the biological trial? Were the biologicals ensured to be compatible with those seed treatments prior to initiating the trials?
So we all used Asgrow seed because it's nationally available. So all the seed was Asgrow and it was fungicide, insecticide. It was Acceleron. I know that can probably change based on the year, but all is still around. We asked for nothing that would have biologicals. And I did talk to all of the biological companies before we got their products, and they told us that their products should be compatible with the seed treatment.
I was under the impression that that fungicide kind of kills these bacteria, or whatever you call them, funguses. And so there's a conflict between that and the other biologicals, is there not?
We were following the company instructions. So as Rachel said, these are all commercially available products. We followed all of their label guidelines and all of their recommendations. We didn't verify one way or the other. That's beyond the scope. We were following what the companies told us, which is what a farmer would do.
Yeah, and biologicals is a very broad term. There's bacteria, there's fungi, there's a whole bunch of different organisms that are involved in biological products that are marketed. But, prior to this, a lot of the big companies have a biological component in their standard fungicide and insecticide seed treatment. So this is commonly done on the marketplace.
So with all your research, are you guys looking at the quality of the end product at all? Is it affecting the protein in a bean, or is it affecting the well-being by what you're doing? So that, yes, maybe this shows a return on investment to the farmer, but the end user is losing money.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And one of the things that we are blessed with on the Science for Success team is to have a collaborator, Dr. Stephanie, who is a lead quality expert in US soybeans and has the capacity to test all of our plots for protein and oil, which on most of these research projects, we are collecting yield data and also protein and oil data. So we know how these management strategies that we're investigating affect yield and quality.
And I got one. So we have Giovanni here, who is our new field ops extension agronomist. So Giovanni, I know you kind of come into this project as it's already happening on the biological side especially, but what are you most excited about working on now in this new position, especially with Science for Success?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. It's been a tremendous joy to be part of the group and be involved with Science for Success. I think one of the most benefits that I see is, I like to keep in mind that what we do in extension is not only share the research and information that we generate, but also I think it's our responsibility to share research from our colleagues, not only here at U of I, in my case, but other universities. So as a young faculty, it takes some time to start doing research and generating data and disseminating the information to our stakeholders. So being involved in the Science for Success team has been tremendous benefit because, as you guys can see, there's over 100 years, I think, of experiences within the group. So it's a place that I can tap in and just bring some information back to Illinois to share with stakeholders. So it's very exciting because it's something that is evolving every year in terms of our protocols. And I like being in the field. I like doing field research. So that will, having this network across the US that we're doing similar protocols and getting like meaningful information out to farmers. I think that's what I'm more excited to be part of.
A follow-up for Giovanni and the whole team, perhaps. So tremendous and excited about this, and I think it has great potential for going forward. And Rachel and I have already talked about opportunities on Stra, and Laura, we're going to talk a little bit about NCSRP involvement more in this potentially, but specific to the communications, publications, outreach piece. So you showed and you listed some formats and publications that you got out. We're always talking about collaborations, interdisciplinary work. Have you connected with modelers and decision tool developers so that you can take all that awesome information data that exists today and reduce it further to decision tools that farmers can access and utilize regionally specific on their farm to make decisions on a biological planting date, something like that?
Yeah, as of right now, Rachel and Laura will be more, be able to speak more about the Science for Success involvement, but I think for now, I think that's a great place that we want to be, because we already have the data and the existing research and the existing knowledge. I think expanding our collaborations with other disciplines, I think that could be a future for Science for Success, and definitely, I think we already started the conversation actually on our monthly regular meetings. We were talking about how can we position ourselves, to be more multidisciplinary approach.
Great.
You want to compliment?
Yeah, that was fantastic. I feel like there's three focus areas where we're trying to expand Science for Success. One is now that we have our group functioning, we're moving into the 5th year, we can do what we initially promised to do well. The next step is to get more involved with other groups that are funded by the checkoff and maybe even beyond, things like the Soybean Nematode Network, Crop Protection Network, the Precision Sustainable Agriculture Network. We're trying to investigate now, moving in to new collaborations, which can help us develop more dynamic tools. Like Ed said, which I think is a second goal, is how do we continue to evolve our information delivery strategies to be most impactful to farmers? And dynamic tools are going to be part of that when they make sense. And then kind of the third direction we want to evolve into is being more effective at leveraging funding from other sources outside the checkoff, so that we're now getting funding to do kind of this core agronomic work from things like the USDA. Laura's leading some of those efforts and would love to have you expand upon that.
Yeah, I can't say anything officially, but unofficially, I think we are leveraging funds successfully. I got a good phone call today, actually, so, some of our biological work, we are very grateful for checkoff support, but we are also able then to leverage that support, with federal funds. And so that's a really exciting area. I think this is our first non-checkoff funds for the team. So I'm really excited about this, and I think we have a lot of room to grow, though. There's a lot of these opportunities, and we have a good team that does good research. So I think we'll be able to leverage checkoff funds, in other ways.
Great.
But you didn't hear that from me.
We've got another online question.
Earlier today, Dr. Van mentioned stink bugs in her first presentation. They seem to be a larger pest here every year. Is there any studies planned further into the Midwest? It seems like most of the information is coming from Southern experience.
So right now, we don't have any specific plans to focus on entomology topics within Science for Success. I will say there's a lot of regionality to stink bug pressure, like what happens in the Mid-South with stink bugs is different. What happens in the Southeast is going to be different than what happens up here, but they have, depending on the species of stink bug, can have a large effect not only on yield, but also seed quality. So it's something we have a heavy pulse on. And one of the great things about this group is, so as stink bug pressure expands into the Midwest, Giovanni, for example, has the resources on this team, like Dr. Jeremy Ross and Marcus, who's been providing recommendations about stink bugs for many years. So that is something that will be on our horizon as we expand these collaborations, and something our group is planning next year is to really have a planning meeting where we bring all the disciplines together, like pathologists working on soybean diseases and entomologists working on pests like stink bugs and people working on technology development for soybean. We're all going to come together in sort of a historic planning session to decide how we want to move forward delivering these best management practices. And that's where something like stink bug management across the US might emerge as a topic that we need to address.
And I will say we have Dr. Nick Sider in the room too, who is our field crops entomologist, and he'll be speaking in our third breakout in this room. So later this afternoon, he'll be talking about stink bugs and other pests, I believe. So come back for that if you have more questions. Yeah.
We've been talking about, ways to get better yield and so forth. Is somebody looking on soybean demand and like how many soybeans we need to have for this new diesel fuel and things like that? Is that in your wheelhouse?
I will say that we should turn it over to Ed to answer that. We are an agronomist group that's not focused a lot in the demand space, but would love to know somebody in the room is knowledgeable.
So thank you for that. So just real quickly, I would say two parts to the answer. The short answer is yes, absolutely. Your QSSBs around the country are very much focused on demand and renewable diesel and biodiesel, the continuation of biodiesel, aviation, SAF, right? So soybean aviation fuel. The second part, so QSSBs, the USB regions are working on that very much so, and trying to make sure that the supply is going to meet the demand nationally and globally. The second thing, just to keep it quick and short, is there's a program that was formed 3 years ago called the U.S. Research Collaborative. It's run as a national effort, supported by USB, supported by many regions and the QSSBs around the country. And the sole purpose of that program, led by Catherine Drake Stowe from North Carolina, is to really help farmer organizations, checkoff organizations, work with the private sector, the public sector, to look across the value chain. So we have a history, very successful history, of doing a lot of research, either in production, supply, what we call, right, on this type of thing, agronomics, genetics, biotechnology, or new uses for demand. And a lot of times those two camps, those two silos, don't do a good job of communicating, looking at opportunities, exploring those opportunities. Now we're trying really specifically to look across the value chain, and renewable diesel and what I call it, aviation fuel is certainly part of that mix. Does that help quickly?
Thanks, Ed. I saw a question in the back as well.
Yeah, on the like variety replacement selection, is there any interaction between soil type and plant architecture type? Do you all have any data on that? As far as like I've seen a hypothesize before that like a bushier bean is going to perform better on better ground, whereas maybe a thin line mainframe bean might just be on the touch close. So that thing you look at.
Clearly, it's not been a topic that we've spent a tremendous amount of time on. I would say, Emerson, you have anything?
Okay, I think we've got time maybe for one more question. I see one more hand.
When you received your Asper beans with the accelerant on, was the biological put on then, or were they put on after you received your seed?
So we worked with different companies, biological companies, and so some of them I met with over Zoom. We had very in-depth conversations of how to treat and all of this. So my student Fabiana went through all the labels, all the company recommendations, and had handouts for each state. And so each state treated the seed themselves. So the companies donated products to me because I didn't want to open them up and unseal them and then mail them, because that seems like a bad idea. So companies sent sealed biological products to each state, and then each state was responsible for applying the seed treatments themselves according to the labels. Some of these seed treatments can be applied like 6 months in advance. Some of them have 24 hours before planting. So we were very, okay, one was 8 hours. So yeah. So we were very careful to follow all of these instructions because they vary widely among different companies.
I applied and they were exactly correct. $78, I think it might have slipped to 9 or 10.
Well, we'll let it pass. You're retired. Okay, last question from the online group.
Do you foresee any changes in policy coming in terms of increasing sustainability that could change the way that we grow crops? Loaded question to stop.
I don't do policy, but I think the answer is yes. I'm not going to elaborate, but I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are trying to expand beyond traditional agronomics in this group to be able to deliver best management practices in those spaces. So some of the things we've looked at is some soil health measurements and how they relate to soybean yield. That was one of our large topics last year. We're looking at things like nitrogen credit from soybeans to the following crop. We're also interested in getting more proactive in the cover crop space. And one of the collaborations that Science for Success has on the horizon that we're very excited about is a collaboration with Precision Sustainable Agriculture Network, who's developing technologies that can be mounted on planters and sprayers as they move across the field, and they have these cameras that can actually quantify how much biomass is in the field and what the species composition of a cover crop mix is, for example, and how that plays into things like carbon payment. So our group is trying to get more proactive beyond general agronomics and being able to deliver solutions in that space.
Great, let's go ahead and thank our panelists.